There has been a recent heightened interest in Neanderthals in both scientific circles and the mainstream media. You may have seen the new BBC Studios documentary for Netflix called The Secrets of the Neanderthals. Swedish geneticist Svante Pääbo in 2022 was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine for his contribution to Neanderthal and Denisovan research by successfully mapping the entire genome of Neanderthals. Why award the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine to a scientist who maps out the genome of an extinct species of hominids? If Africans were the only ones with Neanderthal DNA, would this study have been done in the first place? And if so, would it have merited the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Neanderthals, long caricatured as beetle-browed, hunched and brutish cavemen, have often been cast as the ultimate cosmic punchline, our primitive, less intelligent cousins who didn't make the evolutionary cut. For decades, they were described with terms like ape-like, stooped, and even savage, reinforcing the idea that they were a clumsy and unintelligent species destined for extinction. In 1856, workers in Germany's Neander Valley stumbled upon fossilized bones while clearing a cave called Kleine Feldhofer Grotte. These fragments eventually reached anatomist Hermann Schafhausen, who concluded that they belonged to a primitive type of human. By 1863, British professor William King formally named the species Homo neanderthalensis after the valley where the bones were found. Ironically, Neander translates to new man. The Neanderthals were quickly subjected to negative stereotyping. King himself described them as more akin to carnivorous animals than humans, declaring their thoughts and desires never soared beyond those of the brute. Victorian society, with its fascination for phrenology, eugenics, and a hierarchical view of race, latched onto these ideas, seeing Neanderthals as a symbol of inferiority. Adding to their tarnished image, a French anatomist in 1911 reconstructed a Neanderthal skeleton to appear stooped and ape-like, reinforcing the stereotype of the knuckle-dragging caveman for decades. Neanderthals were depicted as brutish, bone-chewing oafs. Interestingly, German zoologist Ernst Haeckel even proposed renaming them Homo stupidus. This representation of Neanderthals was rooted in the biases of the era. Their so-called robust facial features were wrongly equated with mental deficiency, perpetuating the idea that they were less evolved than modern humans. It is worth noting that these interpretations mirrored the racism prevalent at the time, which ranked Europeans as the pinnacle of humanity and non-Europeans as lesser. Neanderthals were slotted into this hierarchy as primitive and inferior. However, modern anthropologic research has supposedly flipped the script, painting a much more complex and nuanced picture of Neanderthals. This was highlighted by various Western scholars in the Netflix documentary. They are no longer being depicted as crude and unintelligent. Interestingly, they were skilled hunters, tool makers, and even artists. Some Western scholars are coming up with new ideas about Neanderthals, with some citations stating that they buried their dead, cared for their sick, and may have had the capacity for language. This public relations makeover is supposedly being fueled by breakthroughs in archaeology and genetics, including the work of scientists like Svante Pääbo, who decoded the Neanderthal genome. I will argue that this discovery reveals nothing groundbreaking. We have known for the past few decades that they interbred, leaving traces of their DNA in many non-black people alive today. As an African or person of African descent, you should always predict the trajectory of Western scholars when it comes to history. We have been called brutes, savages, and all manner of derogatory descriptive words, which still persist today. Unfortunately, despite advances in our modern world, cultural and scientific racism still persists in our society. The issue isn't about physical traits, it's about deeply rooted psychological biases, shaped by centuries of thinking about race and civilization. Historically, the idea that black people could build advanced civilizations has been dismissed outright. Even when evidence shows that a particular culture was undeniably created by black people, Western thought often redefines them as something else, distancing them from their black identity. This mindset runs deep. often ingrained in people's subconscious from an early age. Even as we try to overcome these biases, they tend to linger, subtly shaping how we perceive race and history. Many still cling to outdated narratives, forcing historical truths to fit into familiar stereotypes shaped by their cultural upbringing. Our revered scholar, Cheikh Anta Diop, called this the philosophical lamp, a metaphor for how entrenched ideas illuminate our worldview, often obscuring the truth until new discoveries shine a brighter light. It is therefore important that as African scholars, we approach the interpretation of anthropologic research with caution. Today, Neanderthals were smart. Tomorrow, they were even smarter than Homo sapiens and had unique abilities that made them better than Homo sapiens. Next thing you know, this bogus information is being used by the remnants of cultural and scientific racism to justify stereotypes about Black Africans, the very people without Neanderthal DNA. Dr. Henrik Clark predicted that the out-of-Africa theory would be challenged by the West because they could not stand the idea that man evolved from Africa. And what do we find today? Various scientists are touting the polygenic origin of man in an attempt to usurp Africa of its role in birthing humanity. Our renowned scholar, Cheikh Anta Diop, advanced some excellent points regarding the origin of man. The idea that all humans share a single origin, known as the monogenic theory, has been supported by evidence from prehistoric archaeology, even though it may have seemed unlikely at first. In contrast, the polycentric theory suggests that different human races could have evolved independently in various regions under similar conditions. However, according to Cheikh Anta Diop, this idea lacks archaeological support and is highly improbable since it would require nature to take the exact same evolutionary path multiple times, something we've found no evidence for. The monogenic theory fits much better with what we know about human evolution. It shows that humanity originated in Africa, which by chance became the cradle of our species. From there, early humans spread out, gradually populating the rest of the world. Understanding this shared origin highlights the deep connections between all people and the central role Africa plays in our collective history. Now that I've established a basis for this video, I will proceed with my critique of the Neanderthal makeover. To appreciate this topic, it is important to first understand our current knowledge of anatomic modern humans. About 3 million years ago, the story of our genus, Homo, began to unfold. One of its most notable members, Homo erectus, appeared around 1.8 million years ago. Evolution, as always, was a complex process with many branches, most of which didn't survive the test of time. But Homo erectus was an exception. It thrived longer than any other early human species and became the first to leave Africa, setting the stage for further evolutionary changes. For many years, scientists pieced together the puzzle of human evolution by studying ancient bones, tools, and other archaeological clues. The first Neanderthal remains were discovered in 1856 in Germany. Since then, Neanderthal fossils have been found across a wide area, from Europe to Central Asia. These hardy humans thrived in harsh climates before eventually disappearing 30,000 years ago. Meanwhile, anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, the species we belong to, emerged in Africa roughly 300,000 years ago. About 60,000 to 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens began their own journey out of Africa, reaching the Middle East and eventually spreading across Eurasia. For at least 20,000 years, and possibly much longer, modern humans and Neanderthals shared the same landscapes, interacting, competing, and even interbreeding. Individuals of European and Asian descent carry about 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA, a result of this ancient mixing. Interestingly, people in East Asia tend to have slightly higher levels of Neanderthal DNA compared to Europeans, possibly due to additional interbreeding events or differences in population history. Indigenous peoples of the Americas, whose ancestors migrated from Asia, also retain a similar proportion of Neanderthal DNA in their genomes. Africans currently living below the Sahara, through centuries of displacement from the north, that is, Black Africans, have no Neanderthal DNA. This is because Neanderthals never mixed with Homo sapiens in Africa. The remnants of Neanderthal DNA in modern humans influence various traits, including aspects of the immune system, adaptations to different environments, and even susceptibility to certain genetic diseases. The Neanderthal skull, on which a recent model was based, was found in Shanidar Cave in Iraqi Kurdistan. It is an iconic place where the remains of at least 10 Neanderthal men, women, and children were unearthed in the 1950s. Within the cave, archaeologists unearthed the remains of individuals carefully placed in a trench beside a towering rock pillar. What stood out was the uniformity of their arrangement, each body oriented in the same direction. This deliberate positioning sparked theories that Neanderthals might have practiced burial rituals, with one discovery in particular fueling the imagination: traces of pollen found around a skeleton. Some researchers interpreted this as evidence that flowers were included in these burials, pointing to a sense of spiritual awareness or even the beginnings of religious thought. Yet, not everyone agrees with this interpretation. A British team currently studying Shanidar Cave has offered an alternative explanation. They suggest the pollen might not indicate ceremonial flowers, but could have arrived via more mundane means, such as burrowing bees or flowering branches laid over the bodies. Professor Chris Hunt of Liverpool. John Moores University elaborated on this theory, noting that the branches might have served a practical purpose. Not because of the flowers on the branches, he explained, but because the branches themselves could have prevented animals like hyenas from reaching the bodies. This distinction highlights the care researchers take in interpreting ancient behaviors without imposing modern assumptions. Professor Hunt was cautious about using terms like burial, which carry connotations of religious rituals. I think placement is more appropriate to avoid modern religious connotations, he said. This practice by Neanderthals is actually nothing groundbreaking. Chimpanzees, for example, have been seen gently touching or grooming the bodies of their dead, sometimes staying near them for hours or even days. In some cases, they have been observed covering the bodies with leaves or branches, though it's unclear if this behavior is purely practical or holds deeper significance. Gorillas have also shown remarkable responses to death. In one instance, a gorilla troop was observed gathering around a deceased group member, displaying somber and subdued behavior. Such reactions suggest that apes may experience a form of mourning or recognition of the finality of death. I will hazard an argument that these behaviors do not equate to the symbolic or spiritual practices seen in Homo sapiens. What are anthropologists saying about Neanderthals now? Research suggests that Neanderthals could produce different vowel sounds and cry out louder than modern humans due to their larger voice box and lungs. According to Western scholars, Neanderthals' diet was diverse, extending beyond the large game like reindeer and horses traditionally associated with them. They ate shellfish, grass seeds, lentils, and even cooked starchy foods like tubers, which required advanced fire management skills, a behavior previously attributed only to modern humans. They also employed complex hunting strategies, catching small, fast animals like rabbits and birds. They also used tools such as stone-tipped spears to hunt and crafted implements to break bones. They survived alongside fierce competitors, such as cave bears. Now, let's examine what is being said about Neanderthal DNA in the scientific community. For example, one theory suggests that having more Neanderthal DNA could make someone a better morning person, as Neanderthals were well adapted to seasonal changes in daylight. This is a ridiculous conclusion not based on any objective evidence. A 2020 study, co-authored by Svante Pääbo, linked a Neanderthal gene cluster to an increased risk of severe COVID-19. Other studies have associated Neanderthal DNA with conditions like depression and addiction. Again, there is no evidence to suggest this sweeping conclusions by the study authors. Another study led by Pääbo found that a Neanderthal gene variant might help protect women during pregnancy, reducing the risk of miscarriage and heavy bleeding. This again is based on biased medical information. Black women in America are more predisposed to complications during delivery, primarily from socio-demographic conditions and cultural biases, even in the medical community. The assertion that non-black women are less likely to have complications during delivery is scientifically biased. The paper in question was riddled with so many limitations, it is not even worth discussing it here. People of African descent, whose ancient ancestors never left the continent, and didn't encounter Neanderthals or their hybrid offspring, carry no Neanderthal DNA. Neanderthals were nowhere close to Homo sapiens in terms of intelligence or adaptation to their environment. We have already started to see attempts at ascribing certain advantageous traits to Neanderthal DNA. This is exactly what was predicted by our scholars. There is no evidence to support the ridiculous and non-objective conclusions drawn by Western academics. This year is a turning point in our interpretation of evolution and world history. Perusing these papers led me to a simple conclusion. This is another attempt by Western academics to reinvent the story of Neanderthals for their own public image. Remember the following: they will tan to get your dark skin, but will mock you for being black. Their women will go for lip injections to get your lips, but will mock you for having large lips. Their women are exercising and going for surgeries to enlarge their gluteus muscles. Yet, historically, our women have been mocked for having this physical trait. They will mock what they do not possess and will eventually flip the script on you when given the chance. All melanated people on this earth, spearheaded by our scholars, should submit swift rebuttals to this influx of misguided and poorly reviewed papers on Neanderthals. This is pure revisionism with a sinister goal. We do not want future generations of melanated people to be told they are less intelligent or sophisticated because of the lack of the DNA of an extinct primitive brute. Share your comments. Be black and proud. Until the lions have their own historians, the tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.